What is the best fingerboards for beginners? What ones have the smallest edge? And which are the best for your training? Today I'm reviewing some of the most popular hangboards in the world: Beastmaker, Lattice and Tension.
But Robbie, they're all made out of wood. What about like plastic and rock?
Whoa, hold your horses fella, all in good time. We're only looking at the most popular fingerboards this episode. There's way more coming very soon. Welcome to the last episode of our ultimate fingerboard review. We were going to do it as a massive fingerboard review and a big video, but we had to shorten them all down to bite-sized chunks because it was easier for you guys. So our first episode was on Beastmaker, our second episode was Lattice, and the one you're watching right now, guys, is all about Tension fingerboards. Stay tuned for how we scored all the fingerboards on our rubric. The next question you'll be wondering is, how are we going to measure the awesomeness of each fingerboard? Well, we scientifically measured the performance of each fingerboard using this rubric. Versatility. How varied are the grips? Example, their slopers, are there pinches, are there pockets, are there edges? Accessibility. How accessible is a hangboard for all levels or whilst you're injured? We'll include an ideal grade range for the users. Difficulty. How small do the holds go? What's the progression like? Comfort. How comfortable are the holds for hanging? And usability. How easy is it to warm up on? How easy is it to apply to training? How good is the board for pull-up and core training? And of course, cost. How expensive is it? And we'll measure each one out of emoji biceps because, well, that makes sense. Whether you're looking for your first fingerboard, your second, or maybe just adding to your ever-expanding army of fingerboards, then you're in the right place. So without further ado, let's review some fingerboards. Tension is one of these brands I heard a lot about through social media, but until recently, I hadn't actually used a Tension fingerboard before. I knew I had to get a hold of one, so I was lucky when I was able to acquire 3 of their main fingerboards just for this video. Now, before I continue, let me just say, we've looked at 2 of the biggest and best brands in climbing training so far. I honestly didn't expect as much from Tension, but boy, was I wrong. The Tension Grindstone is their flagship fingerboard. It's a behemoth of a board with so much variety in edge sizes that there's literally something for everyone. This is the 2nd generation Grindstone, which came out in 2019. The earlier version looks quite a bit different, almost as if they've completely reevaluated their take on its purpose. Unfortunately, I don't have a Mark 1 to compare, but that doesn't really matter because the future is now and the Mark 2 is all that matters.
Future's now, old man.
In terms of versatility, the Grindstone is an edge-heavy fingerboard. Forget slopers or pockets. We're all about hanging edges at Tension. But that's not a bad thing at all. There are 7 different edge sizes from 50mm to 8mm, as well as a big-ass Mondo jug. This is one of the widest ranges of edges I've seen on a hangboard, and with the crazy big jug that has the feel of a pull-up bar, you won't have any issues for pull-ups or core training. For that reason, I'm giving it an 8 biceps in versatility. Now, in terms of accessibility, the Grindstone is only matched by the Beastmaker 1000. There are so many decent sized edges and great progression between each edge, making it accessible at every level. And as I've said already, a nice big jug. Now, I honestly think the Grindstone is one of the most accessible fingerboards I've ever used, and I'd happily recommend it to beginners as well as seasoned climbers. And for that reason, the Grindstone most certainly gets a mega 10 biceps in accessibility. Now, as for difficulty, the smallest edge on the Grindstone is 8mm. I mean, that's pretty darn small. Not many folk can dead hang one arm off those. There's also a pair of 10, 15 and 20mm edges to match, and basically everything you need in a fingerboard to train max strength and endurance work. Because of the range of small edges, I'm going to give this 9 biceps. Now, as for comfort, comfort in edges is a really important thing for me. Basically, I don't want to be in pain when I'm dead hanging. I was curious to see how the Tension boards matched up with Lattice and Beastmaker, and after a lot of hanging and testing, I found pretty much all the edges to be super comfortable, and in fact, I found the smaller 8 and 10mm edges to be amongst the most comfortable and least skin intensive of any micros I've ever used. But I was curious if the 20mm would match with the legendary Lattice 20mm. Honestly, The profile of the edge seemed a bit sharper than Lattice. I'd still prefer the Lattice edge for my one-arm dead hangs, as they can be quite skin intensive, but I wasn't disappointed in Tension by any means. And another point I wanted to make on the comfort of these edges is that if you want to train pockets, all you have to do is drop a couple of fingers and you've suddenly got a pocket. Now this can't be applied to all fingerboards, as I think it takes a very rounded edge profile to be comfortable enough in open hand. But the Grindstone manages this really well, which actually adds to the versatility of the board. And because I was so impressed with the micro edges, I'm going to give the Grindstone a 9 biceps in comfort. And screw it, let's just add an extra +1 in versatility, because these comfy edges can double up as pockets. Now in terms of usability, the Grindstone's big pull-up bar style jug makes it easy to do all your bar workouts from, and the progressive approach to edges means that warming up should be easy for everyone. There's a little phone holder slot on top, which I guess is supposed to be for keeping track of time during hangs, but it tilts your phone at an odd angle, and honestly I prefer to just have my phone in front of me. This feature is therefore a bit useless for me, but I'm sure someone will like it. All in all, I think the Grindstone has a wide range of uses, and I'll happily score a hefty 9 in usability. Now as for cost, at 120 quid, the Grindstone is the most expensive fingerboard in this video. The next question is it worth it? Now I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, and in my youthful climbing bum days, there's no way I'd drop 120 big ones on a plank of masterfully shaped wood. But in my old age, what can I say? I appreciate the finer things in life. And you know what? Yeah, I'd pay 120 quid for a fingerboard that does everything. And I'd hang it up next to my big cow painting, another extravagant spend in my twilight years. So price-wise, as it is pretty expensive, we'll score it 4 biceps on the cost scale. The Grindstone is a simple yet effective design that covers almost all bases for 99% of climbers. I can also see there's obviously been a lot of thought and care taken with regard to the subtler points of the board, such as the edge radius, and quite frankly, I couldn't come up with anything major I'd like to change.
I really like the jug on the Grindstone. It's really comfortable, and unlike the Beastmaker, you can't put your thumb over it, which is something I quite like. There's also a lot of progression on it, so you can build up to the smaller holds quite well. Although I do find the offsetting makes it harder to use the jug in the middle to kind of build up to some of those smaller holds. Now this might just be because I'm small, but I find it quite hard to see where the inset edges are starting and finishing. So it might be nicer to have some markings for the sizes and where they start and end. It might just be because I'm smaller and looking from below, but I think that could get quite annoying after a while trying to get holds and switching between them.
And that's a Tension Grindstone. A bit of a badass all-rounder and a solid competitor with the Beastmaker 1000. But we're not done yet. We've got 2 fingerboards left, and both of them are from Tension. The final boards in our review are actually part of the same family, so I'm going to review them together. They are, of course, the Tension Simple Board and Modular system. The Simple Board is a standard style fingerboard, whilst the Modular system is a pair of replicas for each hand to give you more freedom in selecting where you place them. Now to confuse things even further, there are actually 2 versions of both, an easy one and a hard one. The easy one has a jug, a 20mm and a 50mm edge, whilst the hard one has a jug, a 10mm and an 8mm, and a gnarly 6mm edge. I was given the hard version of the Simple Board and the easy version of the Modulars. Now for the sake of the scores, I'm going to give scores to both fingerboards as the versions I have. Now in terms of versatility, irrespective of what difficulty you have, the Simple Board isn't the most versatile. It's a simple setup with a jug plus 3 edges. I mean, it's in the bloody name. Simples!
Simples!
I don't think the Simple Board pretends to be something more than it is. It's a basic setup for people that want to train on those edges and have the freedom to do what they want with it. For that reason, I'll give the Simple Board a 5 biceps in versatility. However, the Modular system deserves a bump up, as it really is pretty cool that you can space them out as wide as you want. I don't know if I do many wide grip pull-ups on small edges, but if you look like the Hulk and you need a wider setup, the Modular system will provide. So I'll give that a 6 biceps in versatility. Now as for accessibility, I'm going to be honest here. My Simple Board isn't the most accessible. There's a nice big jug on top and then 3 tiny crimps. It's definitely an expert level fingerboard, so I'm going to give this one a measly 2 biceps in accessibility. But bear in mind, there is an easier version of that one, and my modular system is set with a jug plus a 20 and a 15mm edge. I still think it's a pretty ruthless setup and not geared towards accessibility, so I'm going to give this one a 5 biceps in accessibility. Now, as for difficulty, there's no two ways about it. My simple board is freaking nails. I've hung the 10mm and 8mm, but the 6mm still eludes me. The 6mm is a small edge, and it's pretty rare to see edges go any smaller on fixed setups like these. So I'm going to give the simple a mega 10 in difficulty. Now my modular setup only goes down to 15mm, so I'll give that one 5 biceps. Now as for comfort, similarly to the grindstone, the edges are really spectacular on both the simple board and modular system. There's actually no difference, so there's no point in me going into too much detail here. But what I will say is that although I haven't yet managed to properly hang the 6mm, they haven't torn chunks out my skin quite as harshly as the Beastmaker Micro's equivalent 6mm edge. I mean, take of that what you will. Maybe Tension are a bit kinder on the edge profile than those hard nuts at Beastmaker, but I know for sure I'll be putting more time into the 8 and 6mm Tension Micros as a result. So I'll give the simple board a 9 in comfort, and likewise for the modular system. Now, as for usability, needless to say, the simple board has a very specific set of uses. You ain't gonna easily warm up on this one. Maybe we should start comparing fingerboards like cars. Jugs to 6mm in 6 seconds. And I don't know about you, but I'm not gonna be doing many enduro sets on the 10mm. The jug is really nice though, great for fairly wide grip pull-ups and core bar work. So I'd plonk it with a 5 biceps for usability. The modular system is fairly similar, albeit with bigger edges and being able to modify the width, so I'll give this one an upgrade to 6 biceps. Now as for cost, the simple board sits at 60 quid for both difficulty levels. Obviously it's not an all-rounder like a Beastmaker or Grindstone, but when you compare it with Lattice Triple, which is also 60 quid, you can get a better feel for its worth. The modular system is a more amenable £40 for the pair, which I think is a really great deal considering it's essentially the same thing but completely modifiable to how you want it. So I'll give the simple board an 8 biceps in cost and the modular a mighty 10 biceps in cost. Such a good deal. Now, I really like both the simple board and the modular system. But in my opinion, bang for a buck, the modular system makes so much sense. It's a bit cheaper and you can do what you want with it. The simple board felt like it was the sort of board that would do well in a climbing gym or in the home training dungeon of a super wad training freak. Would I change anything? If I could, I'd have replaced the 15mm with a 10mm. I just find that I prefer training endurance on 20mm and max micro hangs on a 10mm. Or even better, all 3 like the harder version. I imagine there is a good reason they only had 2 edges, but out of curiosity, let's hear Mary and Cullen's thoughts as well.
Interestingly for this one, I didn't find the jugs on either of these as comfortable as the jug on the grindstone. Looking at the simple, I mean, I really can't use most of the holds on this, so it wouldn't really be worth me getting. For the modular, it's a bit better, but it's still a big jump to go from that jug to the 20 and the 15, so I think it wouldn't really be something I could use practically for regular training.
So for the simples board, although I do find it's a lovely board to look at and it's a lovely jug to pull on, they're lovely edges to pull on, but myself, I wouldn't go buying it, as like the typical climber is a bit of a bum, and the price to pay for pretty much just 3 edge sizes. Great at a climbing wall, but I wouldn't be finding it in my house like. When it comes to modulars, they are cool, they're great edges, they're great jugs to pull on, but I do think they're a bit knacky. I mean, you're not going to be screwing multiple holes into your wall, moving them around, you're going to be fixing them. And for myself, I think I would just pay the extra price for maybe the simples version of the bigger edges.
Now, I'm not just saying this, but Tension have massively impressed me with their range. They're a brand we're just starting to see more in the UK and around Europe, and I think they're doing some mega stuff. And bottom line, I think the Grindstone deserves the crown for the fingerboard I was most impressed with in this review. That's not to say it's the best for you, but for me, it scored well in almost every category, which is rarely achieved. If you want a reminder of how all the fingerboards scored, you can see how we scored them on each right here. And whilst we're at it, here's me, Marion and Colin's favourite fingerboard from the review. We're also going to be doing more fingerboard reviews like this one very soon, so make sure to like, subscribe, and ding that wee bell for notifications on when the next video is out.